For those of you that don't know me, my name's Amy Frearson. I'm a journalist and editor. Some of you may know me as editor-at-large for Design. And we're here this evening to talk, well, in celebration of the Aran lounge chair, which the four of us are all sitting on. It makes clever use of this innovative knitted textile, which we're going to talk a little bit more about from Camira. But I think this chair is a really interesting example of how new technologies can facilitate creation of products from less materials. So we thought that was an interesting kind of starting point for this discussion, just looking at from primarily renewable or recycled materials and ways of reducing waste at sort of start and end of product life cycle, but resulting in products that look beautiful and are highly functional. This is a very comfortable seat. It's more comfortable than a lot of seats I've sat on for hosting talks, so I'm very happy. We're going to talk a little bit about the story behind the chair and the textile, and also sort of think a little bit about the kind of wider possibilities that technology can offer in furniture design and textiles broadly. So I am joined by Erin Johnson, Design Director at Morgan, Darren Hill, Head of Camira Knit, and we also have Sofia Hagen, who's an interior architect and designer with a specialism in 3D printing and biomaterials, pretty much. So she's going to be able to talk to us a little bit more about some of those wider possibilities. So to kick things off, everyone's prepared a short presentation so you can find out a little bit more about them, what they do. So I'm going to ask Erin to start.
Yeah, no problem.
Please go ahead.
So I'm just going to start by introducing the Aran collection. We collaborated with Camira when designing the knit elements. So we spent a long time developing our frame for the Aran. The main intention and the brief for the product was about a frame that had lightness, both visually and physically. We wanted to create a product that had volume but not mass. That was really important. We also wanted to ensure that we had a reduced reliance on foam. In contract upholstery, we are a contract furniture manufacturer based in Hampshire, so we see a lot of foam in our world and in our life. And when producing and manufacturing furniture, foam is a really integral part of a product and has been for many, many years. But it's how we're able to step away from that or look in different directions and look at other materials that can do the same thing that foam gives us, so to give that support. We also wanted a frame that had a zero waste upholstery method, and that was another kind of overarching focus to look at knit and the way that the knit can complement the frame. By using the knit in tension and stretching it across the frame gives you this three-dimensional surface, which is as ergonomic as foam would be. You feel as if you're sitting in a standard upholstered product, but in reality there is no foam within it. The seat's got a spring unit inside of it, so that there's it gives you the support that you would expect from a lounge chair, but without any foam at all. You can see some of the close-ups there of the knit, looking at density and lightness. So we really played with the concept of knit and in apparel. So in clothing, we looked at jumpers and collars and cuffs and things like that, the way that knit looks at apparel. And we wanted to make the knit softer, warmer, less rigid, I guess. And it was really important to play with the densities, both from an ergonomic perspective, but also from a decorative perspective, really, to make it something that was, inviting. Just a few more of those. This actually is a different product, but it's still very relevant. So as a British manufacturer, we are extremely passionate about lean and extremely passionate about the way product is produced, and we really spend a lot of time thinking about longevity and the way a frame needs to last. That for me is probably one of the most sustainable arguments. Antique furniture is probably the most sustainable product we've got because it outlives us all and it lasts forever. And that's something that our frames do at Morgan. That's what we are really passionate about. So the Kaya collection, which is shown here, and here we have products where a lot of the actual elements are very small, so the actual rails are very small, very minimal, so they can actually fit within lots of sections of wastage of material, so we don't actually material. And the great thing about the car is you could replace the upholstery time and time again when the frame would stay the same. If you need the frame to be, repaired or re-lacquered or restained, you could, but you could change the upholstery time and time again. And lastly, from another material perspective, we have our Rio collection. So this is a 3D printed polyamide element that goes with a glass top. We also offer it with a timber top and timber legs. It's an additive approach to 3D printing, so it's you only use what you need to use. You don't waste anything. It's not subtractive. You're not taking away things and throwing that in the bin. So it's a really simple way of getting a 3D product printed, and in theory you couldn't make that element any other way than 3D printing. So it's just a different way of thinking about it, and one of the first sort of 3D printed products within the contract sector. So we're really proud of Rio as well, and we think it explores that material technology in a different way.
Fantastic. Erin, I'm really interested actually to sort of come back to what you were sort of talking about at the start, and the ongoing issue of trying to design out foam. And I don't know how many people in the room know a lot about sort of the sustainability or lack of sustainability of foam, but maybe you can explain a little bit more about like why foam is is problematic.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the foam that we use from a contract perspective is called CMHR foam, which means combustion modified high resilient. So in order to meet a fire retardancy level of crib 5 for contract, which is all very technical and wonderful, you have to have a CMHR foam and a crib 5 inherent fabric or a crib 5 treatable fabric. So the reason that foams are difficult to navigate when it comes to sustainability is because there is little infrastructure of recyclability. There are companies in the world that are starting to do it and do it, not necessarily in the UK, but further afield. But it's very hard to get it back to something that you can create something useful from it. So a lot of mattress companies are trying to really look at this, because mattresses get put into landfill quite a lot, and it's something that a lot of people are trying to overcome. By completely removing it, you obviously remove the problem altogether. And I think it's something that is a really interesting way forward, that a lot of companies are taking that step and making that move to not using foam.
And there just aren't really other options available, other alternatives like this. Doing something like this really sort of represents.
Absolutely, and I think if you're able to combine it, especially from a seat perspective, in theory you could sit on the knit as well. You wouldn't necessarily have to have a thickness to your seat. It's strong enough to sit on, but we chose to actually have a thicker section of our seat. That was just a design decision. But I think unless you can use either foam alternatives or natural materials that are core materials, the problem you face there is about fire retardancy, where there are still those elements in projects that need to be adhered to. They still need to meet a certain level, and possibly the testing isn't quite there yet within our industry. So it makes it very difficult for designers to know that they can specify a product and trust it, that it's going to do what they need it to do for their clients.
Yeah, interesting. Great. Darren, I'm going to come to you next, and you can tell us a bit more about this textile.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our showroom. So you may know Camira more from the woven side or from transport fabrics. If you've travelled on the underground today, you would have sat on one of Camira's fabrics. So I oversee the Camira Knit, which is a division of Camira where we actually knit products instead of the usual way, which is obviously a woven product, which is on a roll that people then cut and sew. So we've always had a very good sustainable story. So if you think about the usual route, which is, I like to use my hand, by the way, the microphone's in the way. So, Erin, can you hold it for me? No, but normally the route is that you will have a roll of fabric, you will cut the shape out, whatever that is. So for instance, this back, hopefully you'll recycle anything that's waste, because hopefully we are recycling. But then there'll be a level of cutting and sewing that's added to the process. What we actually do, we knit a component. So these actual backs, and I've got one here, so Erin can hold up for me. So that's actually dropped off our machine exactly the right shape and size. So when Erin was talking about design and the support here, so like we're sitting on this now and you can feel that you're actually being supported. We've put some different materials in here for strength, and then some really, really cool attachment methods, which was very challenging to actually fit inside the frame to give this kind of sort of look that went all the way down. Thank you very much for holding that. So yeah, I mean, you can see here, we don't only do contract furniture, we also do lamps up onto your right. We do panels, we do screens. It's not just actual, task chairs or, things like this, which is more of a lounge chair. But predominantly that is the market that we are in. Now we can add different things to the back. So again, we're talking about from a sustainable point of view. So there's no need for a lumbar support, so we can add a lumbar support. So if you think about most task chairs, people go to work, they sit on it, they adjust it. Well, actually, they don't really. They do it once and then they leave it. But the point is there's some material in there, which is a piece of plastic that somebody's added in. So we have lots of products in the market that our fabric actually has a different tension zone that keeps the user supported. So again, another great sustainable story. This is one of the chairs that we've launched with another company called Boss. Again, they have 3 or 4 different fabrics on there. So there's a few on there, by the way, behind you. I'm going to let you pass them in. But yeah, we can supply a fabric that's knitted to fit, which means that actually the customer can select a different design. So again, there's some great slides down here. That's another product that we've done. These are the screens that we do. You can see the size of the screens there. And for the top, where it actually looks like it's coming in, well, there's some shaping that goes on. So on the machine, instead of it actually knitting down in one piece, it's actually shaping in one of the sides. So this gives this cove effect that comes across when the user actually sits inside there. And I've been asked a couple of times, well, couldn't that be done with a woven fabric? Let's just cut that shape, cut the back. What you can't really see on here is the angle when it comes up. When you think about angles, at the back, it's actually more fabric that's in the front. So we had to put less in the front, more in the back, and this is all happening on the machine. So when I say I have rocket scientists working for me, I actually do, because it is very, very clever. Now, these are some really cool symbols, and I love the one on the left, and I think that's the biggest one for me, is bespoke. So what Knit does offer the customer and place, like Morgan, was, what can we do, what can we develop that's something that's totally different. So, people can go and buy from rolls of fabric, and all my Camira colleagues in here, close your ears, Liam, but we're not looking out of a binder, we're looking at actually how do we develop something that is unique and going to be just on that chair for that user. And it is education, isn't it? When you think about when these guys first came, it was like, well, what do we say to you? How do we say, we want that, or we want it to be, a different colour or a different design? And that's probably one of the hardest bits, and it really is about education. As a part of what I do is kind of go and talk to people. We start with a brief, lots of trainers pictures, because obviously knitting is about trainers and apparel and things like that. So it's always a really good start, but what we want to try and do then is do something that's completely unique. Sustainability, again, recycled yarns. We have one of the yarns that we use, which is called Sequel. It's in actually a couple of Camira woven fabrics as well, Quest and Oceanic, I believe. But the beauty of what we do, again, from a sustainability point of view, so the cones of yarns you can see there that are tied up on the back of the machine, they actually come straight through to the feeders, and then they're actually knitted. So we don't add anything else to the product at all. So when we talk about sustainability with Sequel yarn, the Sequel yarn has 10% ocean waste, and then, am I going on? Sorry, I'm over time. So I just said waffle, didn't I? So 10% ocean waste, and then 90%, which is post-consumer. But again, from a sustainability point of view, yarn straight through to the product and straight out the door. We don't do anything else to it.
Wonderful. And I'm curious to know a little bit more about, you sort of say the difference between this being a sort of knitting as opposed to just a sort of typical weaving. So maybe you can paint a little bit more of a picture for the audience of what that really looks like in a facility. I mean, this isn't a lot of people sitting around knitting. Like, these are some like really high-tech machines. You've got like sort of these big kind of like robotic kind of systems, right?
Yeah, and it's that's actually really funny because so many people walk in, we walk downstairs into production, they say, "Where's all the knitters?" Imagine little old ladies doing knitting. But no, I mean, the technology itself, it's been around quite a few decades now. The machines themselves, again, are very, very, well, they're all the latest machines. They're very technical. We have guys that have been developing and doing this type of product now for decades again. So the difference really is that these needles that we have, it's programmable. So these little tiny needles that can come up and do different things. Each one of those, and there's 600 on the front and 600 on the back, can be programmed to do something different. So that's why when we look around and you think about normal fabrics that have got a repeat or something like that, then these fabrics don't have to. So we could go on and have something that's, 4 or 5 meters that can be totally different.
And I guess what that sort of also really offers you is complete customization. You can pretty much program it to do anything that you like, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and again, that comes back to the education. So people, when you say to people, "Oh, would you like this or would you like that?" and it's like, wow, I don't know where to go, because they're used to picking from a binder of fabric. One of the beauties as well that we can add in, and you can probably see that on here, is that we can put different attachment methods in there. So we can knit holes in, we can knit little tubes that we can put something else in. So there's lots of scope for not having to use other materials.
And tell us a little bit more about this sort of the recycled, do I pronounce it sequel? Like yes. Equal, of course. Yeah. How does it sort of work in practice? Because I always often think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to sort of working with recycled materials is not actually working out how to use them, but actually kind of creating that, like having that waste stream so that you've got like recycled material coming in that you can then make use of. We've, again, from a sustainability point of view, our process has always been sustainable. So what we found is over the years, I've tried to push people to have recycled materials because we've had them for a long time. The sequel is a little bit newer, but actually going from a virgin polyester for us to something that's recycled, that is really, really simple. So there's not any difference when it comes to the longevity of the chair or anything like that, because again, it's the polymer, the chips that are actually broken down, which are basically recycled instead of from virgin, which is great. Fantastic. Sophia, I'm going to come to you now. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and show us what you've been working on?
Thanks a lot for having me. And I can already see a lot of overlaps between all of us here, actually, even though we come from very different backgrounds, as you would think, but I guess you'll find that out now. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the 3D printed products I'm doing. This was one of the first. So the studio exists since 2020, and this was in 21 during COVID for Rossano Orlandi's Guiltless Plastic Prize. And it's a bench made of medical plastic tray waste. And it's all 3D printed by giant KUKA robots. And it's a double curved piece. So AI built the software engineers on this who do prototyping for NASA and Formula One normally. They had to reconfigure their toolpaths and print it onto a mold so it could be double curved. And like you can see it a little bit here in the section, the structure is part of the design, which also reminds me of the knitwear here. We incorporate, I can't laugh now, right? It's really loud. I laugh. So the structure is also part of the design because you integrate everything into the print. So it's basically the 3D model. You don't need additional materials. It's literally 98% plastic waste and 2% pigment, which gives it this color. So you can have it in any color you like and also any scale you like. Then a very different example of how to turn waste into high-end design is the cocoon light. It's a decorative pendant or table lamp made of sawdust from carpentry and construction site waste bound with lignin. So there's no glues or resins. It's all organic and natural materials. And it also comes in natural. So this is when it's not stained. When it's out of the printer, you sand it. It's a very different technology, this one. It's a SSL, so jet binder. So you have a bed of powder and then excavate it and sand it down, stain it, varnish it, like traditional woodwork. So each piece is kind of unique because you combine the digital with the handmade. And here it's lying next to the contour seat, which was in a show in Austria we did 2 years ago. And there was a collaboration with an Austrian construction company who do 3D printed concrete for large-scale construction. Like, they don't print houses like I can do, for example, but they do partitions, staircases, and when you print with concrete, for one, so this is all self-reinforced. You don't need any additional steel reinforcements, but this bench can hold 700 kilos, and it's about this thick, because it's all in the design, and it's all in the mix of the shapes and how you then, deal with the structure of the design. So you can recycle it really easily because there's no additional material added to it, and you can just grind it down and reprint with it again. These guys are made of sugar, 3D printed sugar cane, from like fermented sugar cane, also recycled, and the sugar is turned into a bio-PLA, so it's kind of a bioplastic. And the pigments are always different, so the robot spits it out randomly each time, and we don't know the outcome. So each piece is bespoke. It's the creative freedom of the robot. These guys are sugar and wood fiber, which makes it even stronger. They're stools and planters. And then this is actually the same 3D model, but smaller, and they're sugar and sawdust. So same like the cocoon light in sawdust, or we like to play around a lot with that, like try different materials, different scales, different shapes, or literally have the same design, like the necklace I'm wearing here is the same like the cocoon light, just printed in sugar and tiny. You can have it in sawdust as well. And then last but not least, this was our latest from last year. It's a collaboration with a lady who sat in this room, which some of you know. So this was made with Nova Vita, which is a material lab based in London and Czech Republic. And they make tiles. So the tiles here are made of recycled coffee and milk packaging waste, and the leg is sugar. So it's the coffee, milk, and sugar coffee table collection. There we go.
Fantastic. And Sophia, why did you sort of decide to really sort of specialize in 3D printing?
So to be honest, I think it was the circumstances, because I started in the pandemic. And I knew I moved from architecture to smaller scale, and I knew I want to go more into product design, installations, but all workshops were closed, or they just literally went bust because they couldn't work anymore, but robots could work. So that's one, that I started having opportunities where I could work with additive manufacturing through contacts I had, and then also my backgrounds with Zaha Hadid, so I'm used to very complex 3D modeling, and then it's just easier. Like you said with your chair, those shapes can only be printed, really, and that freedom.
And then tell us a little bit more about the sort of like the biomaterials that you've been working with, and like how are you kind of, how do you decide that you're going to do something in sugar? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, a sweet tooth. So actually, I think it's because the sugar and wood stools that I showed, that was a commission for Night Dragon, who do Greenwich Peninsula. They wanted an accessories range of organic materials. And so we worked with FabPub, who are based in Hackney. It's a digital fabrication lab. And we're like, yeah, sugar and wood, perfect mix, and it fits the interiors. And then we're like, oh, why don't we do just sugar? And they have quite a few projects like that, but I think not so much furniture yet. So we're really pushing it and doing a lot of sugar furniture and accessories. But we're adding more. So this year we're launching a new range made of sugar and hemp, which is a new material that was developed throughout the last year for a special product we're making. There's also, with the sawdust technology, you can use coffee waste or stone dust. So very often it's actually clients who approach us and say, look, for example, big corporations, like, we have all these offcuts, could you work with that, or can we print with that? And then we do our research. We work a lot with different material scientists as well, mainly in the Netherlands. And then there's a lot of R&D involved as well, especially for the new materials.
And Erin, Darren, are you sort of how much sort of are you kind of also sort of looking into the world of biomaterials? Is that something that is kind of an option for what you do, or is that sort of still difficult to achieve in a more sort of contract setting?
Yeah, I definitely think biomaterials has a place within contract. We've been looking at things like hemp and coconut from an upholstery sundry perspective as a core within seats and backs, and looking at that to be a potential for the future. It's something that I think, again, the industry's got to come a little bit further with us to allow that to happen from a mainstream perspective when you're trying to meet certain legislative credentials. From a sustainability point of view, you could definitely tick the box, but would it pass, all the lovely things like fire eggs? It's always something that, there's always that, is it crib 5, or does it meet cigarette match? Does it need back coating? I think, for me, what needs to happen is there needs to be a real shift into creating textiles or product that has an inherent FR to it, and I think if biomaterials can do that, a bit like, virgin wool has an amazing inherent FR, element to it. So the more wool it has, the less it needs treatment. So I think if we could get things like that and harness that, I think that would be really interesting moving forwards.
Darren, same question to you.
Yeah, it's something Camira, from a woven point of view, been doing for many, many years. But from a knit point of view, where I've seen the transition from virgin polyesters, and one of the main reasons we do use polyesters is because of the tolerances that we have to kind of keep. So hopefully, if any of you guys get to sit on these, all 4 of them should feel the same, because we have to maintain extremely tight tolerances. When you start to use something like a natural fibre, it's very difficult to hold those tolerances just because of the way they react. But when we moved to the recycled polyesters, it was very easy, like I said earlier on. But now we're kind of being challenged a little bit now from our customers, like, what's the next thing? So this change from virgin polyester to recycled, where we kind of dragged everybody, and I think you're right where you said that on that, Aran, that maybe we're a little bit before the time. Now they've kind of caught up. It seems to be very quick to go to the next part. So we're looking at other yarns. We're looking at coconut as well. There's a lady who makes they're called swallowlinis. You might find her on Instagram, and it's something that goes around like a baby. So the Americans like to swaddle their babies. It's not something we do that much, I don't think, here, but these things are like compressed, they're knitted, but they're made of coconut. So again, it's something that we're looking at to hopefully bring something new to the market.
I mean, Sophia, what you were talking about before is also like really sort of thinking about how, like, sort of starting with this kind of material first approach. And I'm curious, actually, I don't know if this is a question for you or for the whole panel, but do you all kind of find that, like, sort of challenges with just like thinking about sustainability kind of requires you to think much more in a kind of material first approach maybe than you did before?
I think so, definitely, because like I said before, a lot of the projects are commissions where we work with corporations who use certain materials, like big industry, and we can recycle their waste, but especially with biomaterials, it's similar to you, like you face problems that you just wouldn't have if you went for virgin materials. So it's also a very big challenge, but I think that's what we want to overcome with it. I think for us it is material first, but very often it's also context driven, because we want to create a certain design, and not every design is feasible with every material. Like, we do play with it, like sugar, sawdust, okay, but there is still limitations to it. So this concrete bench, I would not make it in sugar, for example, at that scale. So I think it still has to go hand in hand with the all-over project already designed.
I would say that it's probably a combination. I think material is really important about how you select it and you use the right product with the right product, if that makes sense. But I think for us being manufacturers, it's about actually how it's manufactured. I think there's that question as well. It's not just about what it's manufactured from. If you look at the whole value stream of how something is manufactured, that would truly make it sustainable. If it was made in the UK and used local parts, and that was it was truly British from our perspective. I think that's a very sustainable story. Whereas just looking at the product in isolation and saying, yes, it's got amazing sustainable materials, but it's been made over there and over there and over there, and we've flown it 3,000 miles around the world, actually completely negates what it's been made of. You might as well have not bothered making it from that wonderful sustainable material. So I think you have to look at that, but you need to then look at actually how it's made and where it's been made.
Could you repeat the question, please? I think you've answered so well.
I guess, the question was really like, does sort of sustainability challenges kind of force you to take a more material first approach to what you do?
Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, I mean, like I said, for us, it's fairly simple from the point we take in yarn, we knit it, and it comes out looking hopefully stunning. But yeah, so we don't really have that many challenges. I would guess when we're talking about what Erin was talking about, foam, we do self-supporting fabrics. So basically, you will sit on the fabric instead of on the a foam, which is great. The challenge comes in how do you make that structure or that seat able to support somebody and actually maybe give a little bit, because when you're sitting on a fabric, you do need that little bit more. So yeah, a lot of challenges when we're working with some of our customers is how do we combat sitting on basically a floor to actually having a material that can support and give the user an experience that's not sat on foam.
So there's still a lot of kind of experimentation going on with this kind of this style of manufacturing textile. Yeah, and what Erin was saying about the springs, which is just fantastic, isn't it? I remember when we first sat on this chair, and she said something about it's a spring. I was like, really? And it's amazing. And you may not have seen it, but lots of beds are made of this way now with the springs, and not the typical springs that you would see. They're kind of quite small, and they can make different shapes. And that's a great answer. But ultimately we don't want anything in there. So it is a challenge. What else can we expect kind of from this type of textile going forward? Are there what are the other kind of possibilities that we might see from this technology in this field?
Yeah, I mean, we all the time that we're looking what is the next thing, what are people thinking about. We do some products now what we call it's got inlay, so it's a bit of a padded product where we actually put in a high bulk polyester. Maybe we can do something different soon that gives it this sort of padded feel. And again, from a user point of view, when you lean on it, it actually feels like you're sitting on something that's got a little bit more than just a task chair back. So exciting times.
Fantastic. And this particular collaboration, you guys working on this, Erin, was this sort of you were aware of the textile and its possibilities and that got you thinking, or you sort of initially starting by just thinking we need to find a solution for designing out foam?
Well, we were aware of what Camira did, and we were aware of their facility up in Nottingham, and aware of the kind of aesthetic that it had, but we weren't aware, or we were unsure as to how we would marry that with our product. We wanted to make sure that it was a product that didn't look too workplace, I guess, and was a bit more hospitality, because we wanted to apply it to a lounge chair. So that was really important. We knew what Camira did, but I really didn't know anything really. I mean, I thought I knew, but I really didn't know, because it's so precise and it's so manual. I was blown away by the skill of the engineers. And they're knit engineers. I mean, I don't know what else to call them, because they are rocket scientists. Thank you, Darren. But I just don't know how you do it. It blew my mind. It still blows my mind. I know how it's done. I've seen it being done, but it still is incredible as to how it's done. So it's very, very clever.
That's really interesting. And I mean, while we're sort of still on this kind of topic of trying to be sort of sustainable, I guess it'd be interesting to know, like, from all of you really, like, from your experience, like, what are the key questions that designers sort of speccing furniture or textiles should be thinking about, like, if they're kind of trying to avoid greenwashing, like, to really sort of be sure that the products that they're choosing, beyond certification, are actually really, the most sort of sustainable solutions?
I think, yeah, designers and interior designers need to really look at the facts. I think it's data driven. We can all say, yeah, it's really sustainable and it's got all this amazing stuff in it, but has it really? Can you prove that? And I think this is a product where we can, where we know we can. It has integrity. It has that credential. It has all of those credentials. But I think, yeah, there's so much out there, and I think it's very hard for product designers and furniture designers to be original, because everyone is wanting to find that next sustainable product. And I think that's very hard for then our clients to really know if that's really the right thing for them and if it's the right sustainable product. So I think it's about data, as much as that sounds really boring from a designer. I think it has to sometimes be data driven, especially when it comes to credentials. It can't just be, we can't just be told that and believe it. So we have to really know.
Sophia, you're nodding, so yeah, I'm going to come to you next.
I agree. And also, I think the point you mentioned earlier, like, where does it actually come from? You know, the supply chain, like, there's nothing sustainable about something that went across the world. And longevity as well, like the quality of a product, never underestimate that the longer something lasts, the more sustainable it is, because it lasts longer and doesn't end up in landfill. Which are apart from certifications and data. Certifications are often tricky when you're a young design firm because they're very expensive. So just because something doesn't have a certificate, it doesn't mean that it doesn't fulfill these things. So maybe there will be a different system in future, I hope so, which will make it more accessible for any size design brand. And actually the fabrication that you mentioned, because we both do 3D printing as well. It's much more efficient because you don't create molds, so you don't create any formwork and no waste, and only use the material you really need, like with the knit.
Yeah, we are very similar, aren't we? It's quite funny when you put this panel together. It's a lot of people say all the time, you know, when you describe knitting, it really is kind of 3D printing. But yeah, there's the whole greenwashing. More and more the products that we're kind of putting out to the market, as we collaborate with customers, one of the biggest things they are always asking is, what's your sustainability story? Where's the materials coming from? And it's a minefield. It really, really is. And I kind of feel for my compliance team because, everything that we do now, we are asking for certification, or our clients are asking for certification. And when you start to use materials that have already got that certification, it's quite easy. But like you say, when you're bringing new things into the market, and it isn't cheap, and there's so much that you have to try and put into it to prove what it is. People are hiring teams to do this, within businesses, which is very expensive.
And we touched a little bit on, regulation. You mentioned it a couple of times, Erin. Could kind of regulation and sort of certification do more to kind of support more experimental or sort of solutions? Like, is there sort of something tangible that regulation could do to sort of, I guess, enable the transition to more sustainable products and solutions?
That's a tough one, because I think we're putting a lot of expectation on the testing facilities and the testing houses to give that. I think the more product that goes through that process, it will naturally happen. And I think that's, like with any change we've seen over the years of materials that have changed, and when things are fire tested and regulations and different types of coatings on products, it will happen. It's a bit like turning a cruise ship. It just takes a little bit of time. So I think, when you're in your dinghy and you're rowing, it's nice and quick, but the cruise ship, you've got to get it all the way around. So I think it's just giving it that time to catch up, and I think probably it will get there. And I think there's nothing more they can do than just to listen to the companies that are sending the products in to be tested, and eventually they'll have to work out those tests as to how they'll prove that it meets it. So yeah, it will come. Like most things, it will come.
Yeah, sure. Seems like a good point to see if we have any audience questions. Does anyone have anything they want to ask anyone on the panel? Don't be shy. No? No one has any questions. Well, I guess I'll think about what the next question I'd like to ask is instead.
Hi, my name is Fiona, and I have a background in weaving, not knitting. And I guess I know Camira much more for woven products than knitted. I noticed throughout the talk that it seems like knitting is kind of the 3D printing a bit of cloth. And I wonder, it hadn't really occurred to me before that knitting might have a benefit over weaving in terms of sustainability, just because of the fewer waste associated with it. So I wondered, well, number one, I wondered how long has Camira done knitting? Has it always been part of the product line? And also, would you see a future where some things we take for granted as woven might become knitted purely from a sustainability and waste perspective?
Very good question. Yeah, I mean, yes. So I'll start with, so Camira acquired Camira Knit, which did have another name before that in 2006. But before that, the technology was really in automotive, and which was in the 80s. So it actually started with a car seat. So the General Motors were looking at all the cutting and sewing that they have to do on a car. Forget some of the people that might be my age when you had a whole car seat cover that went over the top. This was actually a 3D shape. So it's been around a very, very long time. The biggest challenge that, from kind of our point of view, is that because the industry is so used to the rolls of fabric, like you just said there, you didn't really know a great deal about knit, it's getting through those barriers. So when I've been to customers and gone through their facility, we've kind of done a bit of a tour, and you start somewhere where there's rolls of fabrics, and then you watch these people take the fabric off and put it on a cutting table and do what they need to do to it. Then it goes to a sewing department. And as we're doing this little tour, the back of my mind, I'm thinking, right, here we go, Darren, there's your bit for you to say. And then when I get to the upholstery line, I say, that's where we live. And they go, what do you mean? I says, well, that's where we live. I will deliver something to you that will go straight to that upholstery line. So when you think about cutting out all of that waste, that's where the story really starts to come into its own. But yeah, I mean, from talking about, I'm looking at your jumper that you've got on now. My problem is, because I've been doing this for all my life, it feels like I can't go anywhere without seeing something that's knitted. It's trainers, it's what people are wearing, and apparel has really pushed the technology on. When you think about Nike Flyknit trainers and all the other guys that are doing it now, that really pushed on a lot of the technology, which really helped us, because there's things on the machines now that, weren't on there before. So, but yeah, I would say the biggest thing from my point of view, or what we kind of say to other people, is that it is that bespoke, so you can think about anything that you want and we will try and deliver that. And I say that out loud to my rocket scientists all the time when I'm with clients like Erin, and they look at me and go, I know I shouldn't be saying that, but we can. And I think, challenges as well, when Erin said earlier on about, not really knowing anything about the technology, that's the bit we love. Because when somebody starts to really go, oh, but can we do that? Actually, the challenge is way more than what we know where we are. And every day is a school day for us. If something comes out, and I sit there, I'm lucky in my role, I have 3 technicians that work for me that kind of bring things up most days, and I look at it and go, oh my God, how have you done that? I used to be able to do it when I was a bit younger, but these guys, they know the stuff. Thank you for the question.
Great answer. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
No.
With the knit, once it's made and you're recycling it, could you effectively unravel the yarn and reuse it, or would you have to dispose of the whole piece?
Good question. Technically, you could unrove it. So sometimes when we talk about cutting and sewing, so this product, so here's a great example. The Morgan team kind of said to us, oh, how do we do marketing material? Because normally, again, it's a roll of fabric and they cut some little squares out of it and then show everybody. But we kind of made these little baby backs. And the reason for that is because you don't really want to cut a knit. And I always, looking around the room, Tom and Jerry, does people know Tom and Jerry? Little cartoon where they have a jumper and it would catch on something and it would carry on running and the whole jumper would unrove. Technically, you could unrove it. There's lots of things we put in there, so you can't happen. But recycling the product, yeah, 100%. You know, I mean, it's polyester. I get that asked all the time. Can we recycle? And yes, yeah, 100%.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Eva.
And any others before we move on? No. I'm curious to know actually, because I think this sort of we sort of put together this theme for this talk of thinking about this idea about how technology is sort of really enabling more responsible material use, which we've talked about quite a lot. Are there other kinds of technologies that are kind of maybe emerging or sort of on the horizon that are going to help to facilitate this in other ways? I don't know if this is a question really for anyone who maybe has an answer for it.
I mean, within printing, as an example, so all these pieces were made with different kinds of technologies and robots. By the way, it's not all massive KUKA robots, but what they all have in common is the software. So I think within our realm, at least, the software is just as important, if not more, than the hardware. And because it's all AI-based, so AI simulates the process of the print, which means it eliminates errors, which means less prototyping, less waste. So it's much more efficient, less energy as well, because you reduce the print time to a minimum, and also the material that you need, and it goes full circle, basically. So I think from my perspective, it's more within the software development itself that then runs the technologies.
And sort of, I guess, the possibilities of AI, and particularly generative AI, I guess, means that there could be quite a lot. I guess when you're sort of thinking about things where we talked a little bit about customization, but that can maybe sort of, and also maybe material sourcing. Like there must be real opportunities for AI to really change the way that we think, the way that we source materials.
Yeah, I think there's again a lot that we haven't yet experienced, and a lot that we haven't explored. And I think software is a great example of that. That's definitely, I agree with Sophia on that, because the way that you can use software is obviously the robot will make whatever you tell it to, and I think that's it's also important to have the right person controlling that software though. So I think you've got to have a real mix in an organisation where you've got amazing software, amazing people, like Darren's team as well, and then you create that amazing product. So I think yes, AI is definitely there going to benefit us, but I think you still need the people with the brains as well, because they've still got to control those robots. So I think I think the people power is still really important.
Mm-hmm. And just as a sort of final question, one for all of you, sort of maybe you can also tell us a little bit about what you've got kind of coming up. Anything that we can look forward to, and especially sort of things that are going to kind of continue this conversation about the future of kind of responsible material use and technology.
So one material we have in common, the hemp new launch, that's actually going to launch in California first, because it's meditation furniture made of 3D printed hemp and sugar, and it's a collaboration with LA-based designers who make handmade rugs to match. So the rugs are made in Turkey by hemp and wool. It's a special mix. And then there's little benches you can kneel on, which are made of hemp and sugar. And then we have one line, which is sugar only, with integrated lighting, which is a collaboration with Studio Waldemeier, who give us the lighting. It will come to London in September to Material Matters.
We're launching a new chair collection at Clerkenwell Design Week, so in May, so not that long away. So
getting closer, actually.
Getting very close. So we're launching a new chair collection, and on the same, I guess, theme of zero foam content. So it's a brand new collection. It isn't a knit, I'm afraid, Darren. I'm really sorry, but it's exciting for me.
Fab.
Unfortunately, I've signed lots of NDAs, so I can't tell you any of the products that we're bringing out.
None of them.
Maybe a couple, but no. Again, we've got some launches in the UK. Most of ours are in the US that are coming sort of around June time. But there's a company called Hayworth, not Morgan, I'm afraid. There's one back at you. Called the cardigan chair. So we're launching that. So that might be quite interesting for people if they're this way during May to have a look at that chair. It's quite a robust, big, hugging chair that the designer kind of wanted people to sort of sit and curl in it. And interesting when it was launched last year at NearCon to watch people kind of sit there, take the shoes off and put their feet up was quite good. So yeah, lots of interesting things. We're moving into different markets. And yes, ask me this time in maybe 18 months and I'll show you some really cool stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, all of you. This is really, really interesting, and I hope everyone enjoyed hearing about what you're all working on.